Have you ever looked back on a season of your life and realized that the moment which changed everything didn't feel important at the time? It wasn't dramatic. No music played. No one stopped to congratulate you. There wasn't a perfect sunrise or a speech that suddenly made everything make sense. It was just another ordinary day. And yet, that ordinary day quietly divided your life into two parts: the person you were before it and the person you became because of it. Most people spend their lives waiting for change to announce itself. They imagine that when their breakthrough arrives, they'll feel completely ready, completely confident, completely certain. But life rarely works that way. Real change is almost shy. It slips into your life wearing ordinary clothes. It hides inside small decisions. A conversation you almost didn't have. A chance you almost didn't take. A habit you almost gave up on. Looking back, those moments seem obvious. Living through them, they almost always look insignificant. So let me ask you something. What if the most important chapter of your life has already begun, and you're mistaking it for another ordinary week? Don't answer too quickly, because before this conversation ends, I want to show you why some of the greatest turning points begin long before they become visible. Stay with me. The last story I share may completely change the way you look at your own life. There's an old clockmaker who has spent 50 years repairing antique clocks. One day, a young apprentice asked him, "How do you know exactly which tiny gear is stopping the whole clock?" The old man smiled. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he listened. Tick, tick, silence, tick. He leaned closer. Then he gently removed one tiny spring. The entire clock came back to life. The apprentice was amazed. "How did you know?" The clockmaker replied, "Because the loudest problem is rarely the real problem." Life is like that. We spend years trying to fix what everyone else can see: our income, our appearance, our reputation, our circumstances. Meanwhile, the tiny belief quietly hidden underneath everything keeps controlling the entire mechanism. Sometimes it sounds like, "I'm always behind," or "people like me never get opportunities," or perhaps, "if I fail one more time, I'll prove everyone right." Those thoughts don't shout, they whisper. Yet, they quietly determine the direction of years. That's why changing your life isn't only about changing your circumstances. Sometimes it's about replacing one invisible belief, because one invisible belief can redirect an entire future. Here's something I wish more people understood. Not every difficult season is asking you to become stronger. Some difficult seasons are asking you to become more honest. There is a difference. Strength keeps carrying what honesty tells you to put down. Think about how often people confuse endurance with purpose. They stay in jobs that empty them, relationships that diminish them, dreams that belong to someone else. Not because they truly want those things, but because they've become experts at surviving. Survival is an incredible skill until it becomes your identity. Because eventually life asks a different question. Not, "Can you endure this?" but, "Why are you still carrying something that no longer belongs to you?" Those questions feel uncomfortable because honest answers often require courageous decisions. Let me tell you about a gardener. Every spring, people admired the flowers in his garden. The colors, the fragrance, the perfect rose. Visitors always asked the same question: "What fertilizer do you use?" The gardener would smile. Then he would point toward the winter. People looked confused. Winter? There were no flowers in winter. Only frozen soil, bare branches, cold mornings. The gardener explained, "Everyone admires what grows in spring. Very few respect the work that winter quietly demands." During winter, he trimmed branches nobody else wanted to cut. He protected roots nobody else could see. He prepared soil nobody believed mattered. By the time spring arrived, the flowers were only revealing work that had already been completed months earlier. Your own life has seasons like that. There are winters of learning, winters of healing, winters of rebuilding confidence. They don't feel impressive. They certainly don't look successful from the outside, but they prepare the ground for opportunities that couldn't survive without those hidden seasons. If your life feels slower than everyone else's right now, don't immediately assume you're falling behind. Some people are harvesting, others are planting. Comparing those two seasons will always make planting feel unfair. Yet, no harvest exists without it. Pause for a moment. I want you to imagine your life as a library. Every experience becomes another book on the shelf. Some books hold joy. Some contain disappointment. Others preserve lessons you never wanted to learn. Now, imagine spending every day rereading the single most painful chapter. Eventually, you begin believing that one chapter is the whole story. But it isn't. It's simply the page you've refused to turn. Growth often begins with permission. Permission to stop introducing yourself through your worst moment. Permission to believe your future deserves as much attention as your past. Permission to write another chapter. And perhaps that's the permission you've been waiting for without even realizing it. If this conversation has found you at the right time, I'd like you to pause for just a moment and write one word in the comments. Begin. Not because a single word has magical power, but because every meaningful journey starts with a decision. Sometimes writing that decision makes it harder to walk away from it. Then come right back, because the next idea explains why so many people give up only moments before they would have seen the first signs of change. And once you understand it, you'll never look at slow progress the same way again. Here's something most people never realize until years later. Life doesn't usually change because one extraordinary thing happens. It changes because one ordinary decision gets repeated long enough to become a new identity. Think about that. A single workout doesn't transform a body. Reading one book doesn't make someone wise. Saving money for 1 week doesn't create financial freedom. And choosing hope once doesn't erase years of self-doubt. The miracle isn't in the moment. The miracle is in the repetition. That's why change often feels invisible while it's happening, because every small decision seems too ordinary to matter. Until one day, you look in the mirror and realize you're no longer the person who once made those choices out of fear. Imagine standing beside the ocean. Every wave looks almost identical. One wave doesn't seem powerful enough to reshape a coastline, neither does the second, or the 1,000th, yet return hundreds of years later, and entire cliffs have moved, not because of one giant wave, because of countless small ones refusing to stop. Maybe you've underestimated the quiet power of your own consistency. Maybe you've been expecting your life to change like lightning, when it has always been changing like the tide, slowly, patiently, almost too quietly to notice. Until one day, everyone calls it an overnight transformation. There's an old Japanese craft called kintsugi. When a bowl breaks, the artist doesn't hide the cracks. They fill them with gold. The fractures become the most beautiful part of the piece. Think about how different that is from the way most of us treat our own lives. We spend years trying to hide every mistake, every disappointment, every scar, as if perfection is what makes someone valuable. But perhaps the opposite is true. Perhaps the people who inspire us most aren't those who never broke. They're the ones who rebuilt themselves without pretending the breaking never happened. Your scars aren't proof that life defeated you. They're evidence that you continued. There's a quiet dignity in that, one that doesn't need applause to be real. Can I tell you something that changed the way I think about fear? Fear rarely arrives wearing the mask we expect. We imagine fear says, "Don't do it." But more often it whispers, "Wait a little longer. You're not ready yet. Maybe next month. Learn one more thing first. Someone else could do it better." It sounds reasonable, almost responsible. That's what makes it so convincing. Months become years, years become decades, and one day people wonder where the time went. Not because they lacked opportunity, because fear disguised itself as preparation. There's a difference between preparing and postponing. Wisdom knows the difference. Have you ever noticed how children learn to walk? They don't apologize for falling. They don't compare themselves with other children across the room. They don't sit on the floor thinking, "Perhaps walking just isn't meant for me." They fall, smile, stand up, try again. Somehow, as adults, we lose that courage. We begin treating mistakes as verdicts instead of lessons. One failed interview becomes, "I'm not good enough." One rejection becomes, "People don't value me." One difficult season becomes, "Maybe life will always be this way." But none of those conclusions are true. They're simply stories we tell ourselves after painful moments. And stories can be rewritten. Here's a picture I want you to carry with you. Imagine walking through a forest before dawn. Everything feels dark. The trees look like shadows. The path seems uncertain. If someone asked whether the sun still existed, you might laugh. Of course it exists. You simply can't see it yet. Hope works exactly the same way. Just because you can't see what's ahead doesn't mean nothing is waiting for you. Sometimes the dawn is only hidden by the horizon. not canceled. Never confuse delayed visibility with permanent absence. Those are two completely different things. Let me share another story. A violin maker spent nearly 40 years building instruments by hand. One visitor asked, "How long does it take to make one violin?" The craftsman smiled. "About 6 months." The visitor nodded. Then the old man quietly added, "And about 40 years." The visitor looked puzzled. The craftsman explained, "The violin takes 6 months. The hands capable of making it take 40 years." Think about your own life. Maybe you're frustrated because the opportunity hasn't appeared yet. But what if life has been spending these years preparing the person who will eventually receive that opportunity? Skills take time. Character takes time. Wisdom takes time. Patience takes time. And unlike success, those qualities cannot be borrowed. They have to be lived. So perhaps your greatest progress hasn't been what you've achieved. Perhaps it's who you've become while trying. The calmer person, the kinder person, the more patient person, the one who no longer needs everyone else's approval before believing in themselves. Those changes don't always show up on a resume. They don't always earn applause, but they shape every opportunity that follows. Because wherever you go next, you take that new version of yourself with you. If you've made it this far, I want to ask you one small favor. In the comments, write just one sentence. "I'm becoming the person my future needs." Not because a comment changes your destiny, but because clarity grows stronger when we say it aloud. Years from now, you might look back at that simple sentence and realize it wasn't just something you wrote beneath a video. It was the moment you stopped waiting for confidence and quietly started becoming it. Now stay with me, because in the final part, we're going to talk about the one habit that silently steals more dreams than failure ever could, and the surprising way ordinary people build extraordinary lives without anyone noticing until it's impossible to ignore. Before we finish, I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself exactly 1 year from today. Not the version of you that has a perfect life, not someone who never struggles, just a version of you who refused to quit. What would be different? How would you walk into a room? What conversations would you stop being afraid to have? What dreams would no longer feel too distant to speak out loud? Now ask yourself something even more important. What separates you from that person? Is it time, or is it the decision you're still postponing? Because every future version of ourselves is built by choices that seem almost invisible today. No one notices the morning you decide to be a little kinder to yourself. No one applauds the evening you choose to learn instead of giving up. No one sees the quiet moments when you decide not to let disappointment have the final word. Yet, those are the moments that shape a life. There's a story about an elderly carpenter who was preparing to retire. After decades of building beautiful homes, he wanted one final project before laying down his tools. His employer asked him to build one last house. The carpenter agreed, but his heart wasn't in it. He rushed the work. He used cheaper materials. He skipped details that once mattered to him. When the house was finished, he handed over the keys, expecting to walk away forever. Instead, his employer smiled and placed the keys back into his hands. "This house was my gift to you." In that moment, the carpenter realized something heartbreaking. He had spent months carelessly building the very home he would one day live in. Life asks us the same question every single day. What kind of future are you building through today's habits? Because whether you realize it or not, you are constructing tomorrow with every decision you make today. Maybe you've been waiting for a perfect moment, a day when motivation never fades, a season when fear disappears, a sign that guarantees success. But life rarely offers guarantees. It offers opportunities, quiet ones, ordinary ones, the kind we often overlook because they don't arrive wrapped in certainty. The truth is, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing not to let fear make your decisions. And every time you choose action over hesitation, you cast one more vote for the person you're becoming. If you've stayed with me until this point, I want to thank you. Not because you watched a video, but because you gave yourself a few moments to reflect on your own life. In a world that constantly demands your attention, taking time to think deeply is an act of courage. So here's one final invitation. Tonight, before you go to sleep, write down one small action you can take tomorrow that your future self will quietly thank you for. Not 10 actions, not a complete life plan, just one. A phone call you've been avoiding, a page you've been meaning to write, a walk you've been promising yourself, a skill you've wanted to begin learning, one honest conversation, one deliberate step. Because remarkable journeys are rarely built through dramatic leaps. They're built through ordinary steps taken with extraordinary consistency. If this message gave you something to think about, I'd love to hear from you. In the comments, write these 4 words. Today, I choose progress. Not because those words hold magic, but because they represent a decision. And decisions, repeated often enough, become habits. Habits become character. Character shapes destiny. Maybe months from now you'll come back to this video and see that comment again. Perhaps you'll smile, not because life suddenly became easy, but because you'll realize that today was one of the days you quietly chose a different direction. Before we say goodbye, remember this. You don't need to have your entire future figured out. You don't need every answer before taking the first step. You don't need permission to become the person you know you're capable of being. The path ahead may still hold uncertainty. It may include setbacks, unexpected detours, and days when progress feels painfully slow. But slow progress is still progress. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight. A river doesn't carve a canyon in a day. The stars don't rush to fill the evening sky. Nature never confuses patience with failure. Maybe we shouldn't either. So when tomorrow arrives, don't ask yourself whether you've reached the destination. Ask yourself whether you've honored the direction. Because the direction you choose today will quietly determine the destination you arrive at tomorrow. Thank you for spending these moments with me. If this conversation resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might need a reminder that meaningful change often begins long before anyone else can see it. And if you'd like more conversations about resilience, purpose, and becoming the best version of yourself, you're always welcome here. Until next time, take care of your mind, protect your peace, keep showing up. One day you'll look back and realize that what felt like ordinary days were actually the days that built an extraordinary life. And perhaps the greatest transformation wasn't that the world finally noticed you. It was that you finally became someone you were proud to meet in the mirror.